Board of Supervisors meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Dale Schluter. Kay Wilson. Tweed Schuman.
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Jason Weaver. Mark Helwig. Tom Duffy. Marshall Savitsky. Brian Bizinet. Michael Maestri. Chris Rusk. I see Chris on.
Chris Rusk.
He's muted. John Ringheimer. Ron Kinsley. Ron Buckholz.
Present.
Ed Peters.
Present.
Mr. Rusk is back in the room.
Chris Rusk.
I'm here.
Super. Okay, we have a full board and a quorum. Let the record indicate that. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, certification of compliance with open meetings law, please.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda has been presented. We'll move on to number 6, public comment. At this time, members of the public will be given the opportunity to address the board. Please remember that comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the board as a whole and not directed to individual board members, and the board cannot respond to your comments during this time. So we'll start with Mr. Ernest Martinson, please. Please step up to the mic, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Ernest Martinson, Guard Street, Hayward. Hayward has a revenue problem due to tax-exempt properties like nonprofits, churches, and some government buildings. City Hall is probably tax-exempt from property taxes. Why not exempt all property from taxes, with the exception of land? You know, paying the land rent is similar to paying a water bill. What else can I say about it? When I walk around the city, here I'm going to flesh out what I'm trying to drive at. I see some vacant lots, businesses, houses. And my favorite is that vacant house near Shoes Pond. That looks like it could be a candidate for a haunted house this Halloween. But you know, if you tried to maintain that house, your taxes would go up. If you tried to destroy it and build a new house, your taxes would go up. But this wouldn't happen under a land tax. With a land tax, you'd have an incentive to use the land or sell it to someone who would use it. And a land tax should not imply any loss in revenue, since taxes would simply be shifted from land improvements to land. And this would be a godsend for affordable housing and for economic development in general. Hey, I really like this place. I've never been here before.
Thank you, Ernest. All right, next I have Mr. Tom Jewell, please.
I'm Tom Jewell, W6838 State Road 70, Winter. In August, Lori Martin gave a presentation at the Finance Committee meeting including the Waldo Community Center in next year's budget. There has been a void in congregate meals and socializing when our Senior Resource Center Board voted to cease paying the rent on the Waldo Center last year. We want to fill this void by providing meals and socialization, but we need funding to replace the kitchen equipment, wages for a cook manager, and increase operation cost. Please help us fill this void. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I have a Lori Martin, please. Lori Martin.
Hi, I'm Lori Martin. Address is N6291 Clover Spur, Winter, Wisconsin. I'm the president of the Waldo Community Center. We incorporated in August last year after the Waldo Senior Center was closed for over 2 years. We want to pick up where they left off, and I want to mention that Waldo stands for Winter Area, Loretta, Draper, Oxbow, and Ojibwa. And these areas in southern Sawyer County have always been underserved by the county. We have a situation now with our Winter Senior Center being closed that the meals would come out of Excellent, and those drivers travel over 100 miles a day. They're paid mileage, but they're volunteers to deliver those meals to the people in our area. I don't know exactly what the rate is for mileage, but I ask that you take that into consideration with our request for funding. We have opened our center in October last year. We're almost a year open. We are both Wisconsin and federally recognized as a nonprofit. It took the federal government 23 days to give us our nonprofit status, and I think that's a record. So they're very aware. We have been conducting classes. We have had potlucks, we've had parties. We open the center to area residents that they can have and use the center for parties or just general get-togethers. Socialization is so lacking in our area, and we need a place that everybody can use, including students after school, seniors, middle-aged people, everybody. They're all included in our center, and we welcome all of them. So I ask again that you take a look at what we asked for as far as funding and reconsider or consider giving us some funding so we can move forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yep. All right, next I have Linda Zelmer, please.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, resident of the village of Birchwood. And my public comment tonight is with regard to your agenda item 11C. And in that item, I suppose that it's in support of the requested speed reductions on county highways C and W. But if you look at the minutes, and I know they're only draft minutes, but I don't think they reflect the discussion that was held at the committee. The committee had received an email correspondence requesting that the county off-road vehicle route ordinance be amended to remove the town's approval or denial ability on opening county highways. The discussion was held under correspondence, and it went beyond deciding whether or not to put this on a future agenda item. There was a lot of discussion about possibly acting to amend the ordinance before approving road routes. In October, we're approaching winter months. I would ask that committee and this board not to approve any more opening of county highways for road routes until the spring, and until you have a chance to have an open and public discussion on what should be amended on that route ordinance. I know the committee heard a lot of requests, or an extensive request from a business owner in the county, and he cited a positive trip that he made to Washburn County. So as part of the ordinance review, please consider the Washburn County ordinance and also the Washburn County letter on the safety considerations that need legislative review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next I have a Miss Carol Alman, please.
No, it's checked on there that I wouldn't be speaking.
Oh, all right.
She probably just wants a record.
Yep. I wish, can I read this then, Carol, for you? I wish you would please allocate money to the Waldo Community Center in winter. Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Alex, anyone online? With a hand up? All right, thank you all. Moving on to number 7, Namakogon Transit outgoing staff recognition. Board members, Mr. Mark Helwig and Mr. Ed Peters. Karen, can you please step up for us to the mic?
Stand in the middle here.
Okay, Mr. Peters, thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we recognize Karen Malaseka. She was the first employee of the Namakogon Transit. She started in September of 2011 as transit manager and for the new intergovernmental agency between Sawyer County and the Lakota Band of Lake Superior Indians. As a transit manager, Karen led the way in establishing and growing transit, including hiring employees and establishing deviated fixed routes through the Hayward and Lakota tribal communities. Safety was always a priority, with continuous driver and staff trainings. During her time, there was a period of 6 consecutive accident-free years and numerous safety awards. Under her leadership, operational grant funds were secured every year, as well as capital grant funds for facility improvements and bus purchases. The biggest project was the construction of the Namakogon Transit Facility that houses all operations. It was built with a $1.6 million grant funding. Recently, the facility added solar panels to lessen the burden of increasing electric costs and reduce reliance on non-renewable energy sources. Karen worked beyond the borders of Sawyer County to create partnerships and mentor other agencies and counties to better meet the transportation needs in rural Wisconsin. In doing so, she put Namakogon Transit on the map as a successful county and tribal rural transit system. Karen is leaving Namakogon due to a year-long health struggle, and we thank her.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we'd like to, with our greatest appreciation, we hereby honor Karen Malaseka in recognition of her leadership and 12 years of service to Namakogon Transit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
You're doing
much.
a great job. Thank you.
This is
Thank you guys,
beautiful.
appreciate it.
Yes, I want to say thank you. Yeah, I want to say thank you, and I really appreciate the support of Sawyer County and the Lakota tribe over the past 12 years. Growing our transit system has been challenging, but also fun. During the 12 years, we have driven over 5 million miles, providing over 700,000 passenger trips. It will always make me smile when I see the bus in town. I know it will grow and prosper as it continues to drive into the future. At Namakogon Transit, I held the steering wheel, but it takes the whole team to keep the bus wheels rolling. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Karen. You're going to be missed. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Helwig, Mr. Peters, well done. All right, we'll move on then to number 8. Consider approval of our meeting minutes, August 17th, 2023. Mr. Buckholz?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Mr. Peters?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Buckholz, second by Mr. Peters to approve our meeting minutes of August 17th, 2023 as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, number 9, zoning committee. Mr. Buckholz, chair report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The zoning department continues to see above average permits and general inquiries. Year to date, land use permits are at 429, which is up 16 land use permits over the same time last year. The Tourist Rooming House Ad hoc Committee will hold its fourth meeting on Thursday, September 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Sawyer County Boardroom. The Zoning Committee held its monthly September public meeting. Last Friday, we had one conditional use permit and two preliminary subdivision plats, which were approved and made recommendation of approval on two rezones, which will be heard next. For August, the committee approved one conditional use permit and recommended approval of one rezone case, which I will turn it over to Jay if there's no other questions. But before I turn it over to Jay, I want to make a comment. I want to thank Jay Kozlowski, our zoning administrator, and his staff for all their hard work that they do for Sawyer County and keeping the committee upgoing and be able to go forward in our zoning committees. Thank you, Jay.
Okay, Jay?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buckholz.
You're welcome.
We have actually just one rezone case tonight. The two that were recommended for approval last week will be coming back to this board next month. So this is for rezone case number 23-006, Gregory and Mandy Bone, Town of Hayward. Legal description is the part southwest one quarter, the southwest one quarter of Section 28, Township 41 North, Range 8 West. It is 2.21 total acres, zone residential recreational 1. The request is to rezone the entire 2.21 acres from residential recreational 1 to commercial 1. As per the applicant's request, they are wanting to rezone this to commercial to have commercial storage buildings. This property is surrounded by commercial 1 zone properties in all directions. The 5-acre parcel immediately to the east was approved to rezone back in 2020. There's a larger block of commercial land in this area along the Highway B and Highway K corridor. And just to the south of this property for the subject rezone request is the LCO Casino. The town of Hayward shows this area as rural transitional. The RT classification as the town of Hayward Comprehensive Plan recognizes would have future land uses within this area, including C1. The town does not require an amendment to their comp plan to do so, and the town made a recommendation for approval as well on their August 15th town board meeting. There were 2 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners within 300 feet. One was returned with no objections. Sawyer County Zoning Committee on its public hearing August 25th, 2023 recommended approval, vote 5-0 with the findings of facts as shown in my staff report.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Ms. Hessel, please.
I make a motion to approve the rezone 23-006.
Okay, I got a motion by Ms. Hessel. Second by Ms. Wilson to approve the rezone. Is there any further discussion? Alex, anybody online? All right, so Lynn will set it up to vote then. The motion is to approve the rezone. We'll use our
The electronic clickers, can I collect a vote from Mr. Rusk?
Aye.
Mr. Maestri?
Yeah.
Mr. Bissonette?
Yeah.
And John, yours didn't recognize, and Mark, yours didn't recognize. Go ahead and try that again. Mark, okay, looks like we've got it.
Got it?
I'm gonna close the vote. And the motion passes 15-0.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. We'll move on then to our Public Safety Committee Chair report. Mr. Buckholz, you're up again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Public Safety Committee meeting met on September 7th. The Circuit Court Judges report, we have not been getting any reports from the judges, and I've asked the clerk if she would contact the Judges Department to request a monthly present of some kind, whether it be either one, we don't care, but we just like to get a report from the judges and see how things are going with the 2 judges. Clerk of Courts report, Mrs. Kelsey reported that 3 courtrooms are now often running at once with the visiting judge's caseload. Clerk of court staff are extremely busy, and another full-time position request will be on the budget. The Sheriff's Department report, Communications Center report, Sheriff Morotek summarized some of the events in the community, including an assault on a jailer. Mr. Rapinski advised that the full-time dispatcher was hired and started work. All right, that's Mrs. Rapinski, excuse me. Started work together, that they have two full-time vacancies. Calls are up slightly from last year. The chair and the committee recognized Mr. Cole Morgan for his a job that he's doing in a jailer, as he's the one that was attacked. Patrol report, a written report, was reviewed by Lieutenant Rapinski. Summer is winding down and schools are back in session. Efforts are on school bus safety and routine school checks. Jail report was provided by Lieutenant Waller. The daily average year-to-date is 71.7, down from 92.67 in August. And incarceration rates were reviewed. Mr. Morotek advised that the family and civil courts activity is becoming much of a concern as criminal court. Emergency management. Mrs. Rapinski said testing the tornado sirens revealed that some of the stations need maintenance, and child support written was indicated that 1.251.34 and 73 cents to child support payments are due, and $883,650.95 has been collected. And that ends my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Helwig.
I just want to make the comment that I believe our new judge, Mrs. Isham, did come in about midway. Is that correct? Didn't she come? Oh, okay. I'll step back and just be quiet.
Thank you, Mr.
She did, I didn't see her. That's okay.
And Mr. Buckholz, now I understand that our jail is fully staffed and we're no longer housing inmates outside of the
We
county.
have no inmates
Is that
outside
correct?
the county, yes.
Okay. Anything else for public safety? Anybody online, Alex? All right. Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Moving on then to number 11, Public Works Committee Chair Report. Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maintenance is working to get things ready for the winter now. We're in the building. They've done a lot of work to get us in this building. I think they've done a wonderful job. The airport is extremely busy. They've had the busiest summer they've had so far. They've also brought in the biggest plane they've had so far this summer. So things are good out there. They're looking to redo the airport runway in 25 or 2025. And the highway, they have a new commissioner out there and he has lots of ideas. And one of the ideas he brought forward to us is they're always giving permits for driveways. And they're gonna put a fee on that. So next month will be on the agenda to have a fee for a driveway permit, which is a good thing, more revenue for the county. Letter B, courthouse remodel, it's pretty much done. There's still some stuff being done with administration, which I'm sure Mr. Alvarado will touch bases on. Letter C, County Road C and County Road W speed reduction, discussion and possible action.
Okay, can you, Mr. Alvarado, do you want to comment on the County C speed reduction, either you or Mr. Kinsley?
And Mr.
What are we reducing that to?
Mr. Pino's on.
Oh, okay.
He's on Zoom as well.
John, you want to go ahead, sir?
You might be catching them off guard.
Mr. Pino? Okay, you want to handle it, Andy? Okay, go ahead, Andy.
So these start at the Traffic Safety Commission and then come through Public Works and then to the board for approval. The speed zone in County C is requesting to reduce the speed limit to 45 miles an hour from a section of County C from Ortwig Lane to a point 2,640 feet south of Ortwig Lane. It's about a half mile in length. The highway commissioner has deemed that it would be appropriate request to move forward with to reduce the speeds to 45 miles an hour.
So then we're going from 55 to 45, and Mr. Kinsley, the Public Works Committee approved this?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, Mr. Helwig?
I'd make a motion to approve the county C speed limit reduction.
Okay, Mr. Peters?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Peters to approve the County C speed reduction from 55 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. Is there any further discussion? Anybody online, Alex? Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll set us up to vote. Madam Clerk, please.
Voting is open. Could I collect?
Motion is to approve the County C speed reduction.
Thank you. Mr. Rusk?
Approve.
Mr. Maestri?
Approve.
And Mr. Bissonette?
Yeah.
And it passed 14-1 with 1 nay vote from Mr. Schleter.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. All right, County W speed reduction. Is it Mr. Pennell back on, Alex, now?
I can hear, muted.
Okay, thank you, John. John, do you? We are on number 2, sir. County W speed reduction. Can you comment for us, John?
Yeah, so I'd like to reduce the speed limit by 10 miles an hour. We're doing 55 just past the trailer court on W North, out at Turcot Corner. I can't remember offhand how far that is, I believe a half a mile.
Yes.
We've had multiple complaints, the school buses letting kids on and off the school there. So my request would be reduced from 55 to 45 for that half mile.
Okay, Mr. Kinsley, the Public Works Committee.
Public Works Committee approved it. Also, I'll let you know, there's a trailer court there, and that was the main concern. People making left-hand turns coming out of there, and it's hard to make that left-hand turn when people are going 55 miles an hour. So it is reduced down to 45. And like Mr. Pinto said, there's school buses unloading there also.
Okay, so the recommendation is to reduce it from 55 to 45 for that half-mile stretch? Okay, pleasure of the board. Mr. Helwig?
I would make a motion to approve the county W speed limit reduction.
Okay, motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Weaver to approve the County W speed reduction. Madam Clerk, we'll set her up for a vote. Oh, discussion, I'm sorry.
I just had a question.
Ms.
Are they
Hessel.
also putting signs for the bus? You know, they have the signs on the roads usually, and it looks like there's a hidden driveways. So I would
Yep.
just encourage signage as well as the reduction.
Did you hear that, Mr. Pennell?
Yeah, and that I did, because that's at Public Works, that I would be as far as the school bus stop, signs that are along that road.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, voting, Mr. Schleter.
Yeah, just a question. To slow down for only a half mile, it's like by the time you notice it, you're through. Should it be perhaps longer so to be more safe?
If I may,
Yes, absolutely.
the trailer court is getting out of town, and they've reduced it to around, there's a corner out there, it's called the Turcot Corner, the Winter Electric is out there. It's out to that corner, so you got away from the rural, or the population area.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Peters?
If my memory serves, we go from 35 to 55 in that area, and this would have a buffer of about 45 miles an hour in between those two extremes.
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the speed reduction on County W. You can set up the voting, Madam Clerk, please.
Voting is open. Could I collect a vote from Mr. Maestri?
Yes.
Mr. Rusk?
Yes.
And Mr. Bissonette?
Yeah.
Okay, Marshall, would you click yours again? Okay. And we have it passed 15-0.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Kinsley, anything else with Public Works, sir?
No, that concludes my report, thank you. The number 3 and 4 is just general
Yeah.
information.
Okay. Thank you.
Tweed,
Mr. Schluter, yes, sir.
the proposed fee for driveways, is that on county highways only?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
That'll be coming next month.
Is that a one-time fee or is that an annual fee?
One time for the driveway. And I was told an example today on.
Yeah, please.
An example today on Highway W south of Winter, they've been putting in broadband cable and they've done a lot of damage to our culverts and ditch, and even rocks layout. And if they'd had to get a permit, that might have solved a lot of that, or at least we could have overcame some of the money it's gonna cost us to get it back repaired.
Thank you.
Question. Okay, Mr. Buckholz.
Mr. Kinsey or Mr. Pennell, these culverts that are getting put in on county roads with a fee or a permit, which is a good thing, I'm not against it, but is the county still gonna be the ones that install that culvert, or is it gonna be the person that owns the driveway?
So these are actually the driveway and utility permits, and the county is gonna issue the permit, and the party that puts the driveway will install the culvert per county rules, and then we will inspect it and sign off on the permit.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Rusk, Chris Rusk.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe see if Commissioner Pino wanted to inform the rest of the board, let Public Works Committee know that going through the winter, you'll be having county presence on the road, I believe 24 hours? 7 days a week?
It will be, so I got approved by the state funded to have 50% of our funding for night watchmen. And these hours will run from Wednesday through Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Sawyer County's never had that presence before. And we do have good candidates at highway shop internally, to fill this position.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pino. That sounds great. All right, number 12, Land, Water, Forest Resource Committee Chair Report. Mr. Peters.
Yes, sir. The Land, Water, and Forest Resources Committee met on August 9th. We heard from the Register of Deeds that revenue transfer fees have surpassed the budgeted amount in August, and are currently running well ahead of expectations. Under land records, the survey crew has worked on replacing corners in roads in the towns of Hayward, Round Lake, and the city of Hayward. Under the Sawyer County Forestry Department reports, we're hitting the target for revenue on timber sales, which is a good thing. There may be a slight slowdown coming up because of reduced call for materials for LP. There's progress being made for the carbon credit mostly to set up plots that will be permanent plots on those areas. Under DNR forestry, Mr. Fisher reported on oak wilt survey. It was apparent that there was no oak wilt on county forest land, but adjacent land had some evidence, and they are following up on that for possible treatment. He also reported on infected deer in a private Washburn deer farm area for CWD. Since that time, it's been noted that the DNR is placing a baiting and feeding ban on Sawyer, Rusk, Washburn, and Barron counties, and that will begin on October 5th, 2023. In addition to that, the conservation staff has completed shoreline mitigation checks, and there are several letters being sent out to people who are not in compliance with specific mitigation issues. Ms. Erler provided an update on aquatic endangered or invasive species and clean boats, clean water for the lakes in Sawyer County. Mr. Sheptick reported on drought conditions, and I noted today that certain pasture types are eligible for reimbursement on that. Mr. Bissonette gave a report on from LCO that they will be closing down the hatchery for this year since they're getting this, they're stocking out the walleye that have been raised, and they will resume next spring. So that concludes my report.
Okay. Mr. Peters, did DNR at all report on their wolf management plan as that moves forward and goes to public hearings? And was there any report on that?
There was no report on that, but I have seen materials on the wolf management plan and the hearing that's coming up.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for land, water, forestry? Thank you, Mr. Peters. All right, number 13, Health and Human Services Board Chair Report. Mr. Schlueter.
Thank you. This month, Health and Human Services Board staff training session went exceptionally well. Great engagement in department to department and good discussion. Very worthwhile time. Everybody is glad that we're going to do a few more of these in the future. A moment of silence to remember Carol Lund from Northland Counseling, as she has passed away and was very essential to some of the work done here. Adult long-term care will be having, adult long-term care have an upcoming caregiver conference on September 22nd. Behavioral Health Clinic have their annual license sometime late in September or near early October. Economic support showed current and caseload statistics and call center activity. Energy assistance program has started and is going well. In fact, almost too well. There's a lot of people trying to get the available funds, and we wish we could add more funds, but economic support, the energy assistance program also is going well. Fentanyl awareness, team outreach, and educational events have reached over 800 individuals. Public health participation in winter school, active shooter exercise. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schlueter. Anything else for Health and Human Services? All right, moving on then to number 14, Finance Committee Chair Report. Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We go over different reports. One of them is the ambulance report, and we seem to be receiving more funds coming back all the time because I think Mr. Markman does a wonderful job keeping track of that, keep the committee abreast of that. We also got a presentation from our Sawyer County Treasurer, communicated about land sales, how they go about the land sales, and that was, I thought, very educational to bring us abreast how it works out. The letter C is a preliminary 2024 budget. We're honored to have our county accountant here tonight, and he'll share that with us.
Okay, Mr. Markern. Thank you, Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you. I did send this out Tuesday to each of you. Hopefully you got a chance to look at it quick before tonight. The reason I do it that way and not put it on the agenda, attach it to the agenda, is I personally feel that the Finance Committee, the board, should get a chance to look at it before it's out there for the public. And I like to give an explanation to it as well before it's floating around. This is a good news budget. Compared to last year, I'm really happy about this one. Not that last year's was bad, but the tax situation is better than we've seen the last 2 years, so I'm pretty happy with that. go to the next one. I'm just gonna go over a couple highlights. The net new construction was 1.186%, which is the highest it's been in the 14 years that we have record. It just beat last year, which was 1.17. That equates to about $122,500. I also want to mention that shared revenue, I'm sure you've all heard that by now. We ended up getting about another $290,000, which is, it's really good. I mean, being a high property valuation county, we didn't receive what some other counties did as for an increase. We are a top 5 percentage-wise increase, but we're probably a bottom 5 as far as dollar increase. And that's just how the formula works out. But we're happy to get anything, and it really helped with the budget.
290,000 for 24. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
It comes in 2 payments.
I think it's split, yes.
Okay.
We did have late this year, summer, on a fair amount of staff shifting positions. And the reason I mention that is health insurance is, one of our largest single items that we have. So when somebody moves or we hire someone new, it's a different plan that can have a big effect on a department's budget. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the individual department budget, but I did attach that you guys can look through. And really, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary other than step increases where applicable. And then this budget does include a 2% across the board salary increase of all non-union on January 1, and then another 1% on July 1st. So we feel good about that too. We're trying to take care of our staff and compensate them properly for what they do. Health insurance, I do have at a 5% increase, and just as last year, we'll battle that to try to get it better than a 5%, but that's just what I plugged in there. Another couple good things, our sales tax revenue continues to grow. Right now, my projection model that I made shows us getting to about 2.957 million. So I put in for the budget 2.8 next year, which is up from 2.6 for 23. So we should exceed it this year, and fairly confident we'll hit that 2.8 in 24. And then finally, we're seeing really good returns on our investments right now. A year ago when I did this presentation, we were getting 0.14%, I think. Now we're getting over 5%. So we've well exceeded budget for 23 already. Most people think we're going to see one more rate hike, and then we could start seeing leveling or even declining. So I'm not budgeting what we're getting this year for next year, but it is quite an increase over what we had budgeted for 23. Right now, the general fund budget is showing a surplus of $48,000, which is good. Gives us a little room for last minute things before we actually set the budget. And I know there's one expense that we're waiting for a price on that could be about $35,000, so that'll eat up a lot of that. The budget does include everything as requested and then we will make some recommendations for the administrative budget, which will be coming to you for the next meeting. Continuing with the highlights, there are 6 revenue limit exemptions. The ones in yellow are the ones that we take advantage of. Bridge culvert, construction repair, countywide EMS, payments to public libraries, and payments to general obligation debt. If you remember a year ago, we did kind of entertain the idea of doing the same thing with property and casualty insurance. We ended up not doing that with how the interest rates were going when we issued the debt to complete the courthouse project, the 23 CIP, the 24 CIP, and then also pay off the property that we took out the state loan in December. We did not add that in there because we just didn't feel we needed to at that time. So we were able to reduce the amount we needed to issue for that amount. And then the final one is court-ordered placements. And we do have a fair amount of those. We have not utilized that in the past. It is something we know that we could if things really got tough at some point. Feel free to interrupt at any point here too. So then moving on to the budget requests, we didn't have a lot different than previous year, or last year anyhow, the only one I know. Extension did ask for an increase. They wanted some more support staff, and then also to bring on some interns, I believe, through AmeriCorps. That was gonna be, or is going to be shared with surrounding counties along with us. So they requested $32,500 for that. Subsequently, they figured out another way to do it that'll be a little cheaper, that'll save about $17,000. So you'll see that later. Court, we have a 60% additional support staff in there. Beyond that, this is one of those changes we had where the juvenile justice person went to the second judicial assistant. We kind of revamped some duties so that we split that job that she had between the two judicial assistants. So we kind of did alleviate some of the workload that way. Right now we have, including this, we have 1.6 FTE open because we haven't filled a position yet either. So part of why they're a little overwhelmed right now is, you know, all the new things with the second courthouse or courtroom, but also we're short-staffed. Along with that, though, is we're getting an increase in our aid from the state for that second judge of over $52,000. So I know I wasn't here, but I heard when we went into this construction, there would be no new costs. Well, this budget, at least at this point, doesn't have new costs because the net with that increase in aid covers that 60% FTE that we need to do the work. And then plus we'll have some extra costs with witnesses and stuff and jurors, that kind of thing. But it should net out.
So Mike, the second courtroom and second judge, then you're gonna say is budget neutral for 24.
Correct, at this point, with this budget. Andy will
Yeah.
qualify that.
I'll qualify that.
Yeah, because
So-
we just put it out there, Andy.
So the budget as we have it put together right now is where we are, and that's the July meeting. We brought to you the adding the 0.6 position in the clerk of court's office, and then we, like Mike said, we took and created a judicial assistant position for the second judge. We took the existing register and probate juvenile clerk position and split it. So the juvenile clerk duties are with the JAs, and register and probate went into the clerk of court's office, where we added the 0.6 position. You've heard, some of you from the clerk of court, that she has requested a full-time position. In addition to that, at this point, it's not in the budget. We haven't put it in there. And my reasoning for that is that the 1.6 positions we still have vacant in the clerk of court's office. I'd like to get those filled to see how things operate before we add another position on top of that. And it's unfortunate, it's fortunate, unfortunate that the way that worked out is the JA position in the second branch was filled by somebody from the clerk of court's office, so that vacated the one position, and we have the new 0.6, and we haven't been able to fill either one yet. And there are some other staffing issues in that area that were just unforeseen. We have people out on medical leave. So people are stretching to keep things going as they are, but until I see the staff positions filled, I don't have a good feeling that we'll need another position yet. The other thing is that right now, the calendars are still getting balanced. We're going from having, really we had two courtrooms before, the small courtroom and the main courtroom, and now we essentially have three. So cases are getting assigned to the new second branch, so that calendar is gonna start to balance out as they get pulled off of the first branch. And in talking with the court staff and the district court, that's probably gonna take until December, because that's how far out cases were already scheduled. So as the court calendar gets balanced, my expectation and theirs is that it should be a rare instance where we have three courtrooms going, where the two main courtrooms and then the small courtroom are all going. We should be able to balance the calendar so only two are operating at any one time, no more than two. So I think that'll balance out, and some of the concerns that about needing additional staff hopefully don't come true.
Okay.
It's a long qualification, sorry, Mike.
Thank you, Andy.
No, that was good.
That is good news.
Next slide then. So in all, when I compiled everything from the request, it showed that we would need a fund balance draw of almost 1.65 million. This year it was about just under 1.7 million. And we had 1.4 million in 22, which we did not need to use any of. And I'm hoping we don't need to use any of the 1.7 this year either. There is a little more likelihood we would use some of this, but we did make some adjustments. So I've got the requests here and what we would recommend as our administrative budget that we would present, and I'll go through those. So the senior center requested just under $230,000. Last year they requested quite an increase, and we met in the middle. This would be the same thing this year. We would recommend going to $210,000, which would be an increase of $10,000, but we would save almost $20,000 on what they're requesting. And then Nemacoggin Transit, kind of the same thing. Last year they recommended a $25,000 increase, or requested $25,000. They did so again this year. Would recommend giving them another $5,000 as we did last year, and that would save $20,000. And then I already mentioned,
Mike, I gotta stop you right there.
Sure.
Nemacoggin Transit had a board meeting today. Mr. Hellwig, Mr. Peters, myself, and Mr. Buckholt. They are gonna ask for 5,000 more than what you're recommending. Just putting that out there now.
okay, so they're revising their initial request,
Well, their initial request was what, 180?
180.
Yep. We had told them what you were recommending, so they're asking for 165.
All right.
Correct, guys? Okay.
All right, I noted that. And then the extension support staff change, I've got that in there, so that will actually be more like 15,000 versus 32.5. And then here's where I'm recommending doing things a little bit different. Health and Human Services has been if not all of the vast majority of the fund balance draw we've budgeted for in the past, and that's due to placements. And a lot of times, well, they haven't had as many as they budgeted for, and that's why we haven't had to do that transfer. But beyond that, out of the 2021 surplus, we did designate 1.3 million to go to HHS's fund balance. And then last year in 22, they showed a net income of about $500,000. So just in the last 2 years, that's 1.8 million that they put to their fund balance, and they already had some in there. So they're sitting at just under 2 million. So I'm kind of recommending meeting in the middle with that too, where we would continue to budget a fund balance draw to send to HHS, but they would share in that as well. So I'm recommending that we would take 747,000 out, budget that out of their own fund balance, out of that 2 million. So that would be a change from how we've done it the last couple of years. And then highway would be similar. They've got a fund balance of just under 700,000. Their request would be a need of 343,000. Same thing, kind of meet in the middle, where we would take 150,000 from general fund and transfer it there, and then the other 193 would come out of their own fund balance, which would still leave them $500,000. So any questions on those two changes from last year? All right, so that brings the adjusted fund balance draw down to 644,000. Right now I've got budgeted a draw of 750,000. So we actually are well within what I've got budgeted. We can change that budget down to what the need looks like it's gonna be as well too. But with what Mr. Alvarado said earlier, I wouldn't mind having a little buffer in the general fund in case we happen to need to add something, a position. So I'd rather not have it quite that tight and actually use some surplus to send to those.
Mike, where does the interest money go from our investments? Does that
General
go into the
fund.
general fund?
Yeah. So then moving on to the partner organization requests. A lot of these are libraries. Northern Waters asked for a little bit of an increase. Both Weiss and Winter didn't ask for an increase. They just wanted us to hold status quo. And the LCO Public Library, they go by the formula. Their formula actually went down from last year. And then the out-of-county libraries formula went up just a little bit over last year. And then the senior center, which I talked about, adding 10,000, Nemacoggin Transit adding 5. If you would like, we can make that 10. Hayward Lakes didn't ask for any additional funding. Northwest Regional Planning actually went down. Sawyer County Fair looks like it went down $7,000. They, beyond the $40,000 they requested, they have a $10,000 request in the CIP. So actually they're asking for a little more than last year, but it's just split two different ways. And then final one, the economic development did ask for a $5,000 increase. So all those together with the adjustments that would be in our admin budget, it's an increase of about $7,000.
Mike, does the Senior Resource Center line item, does that include this Waldo Center in Winter?
That does not, no. What this is.
Where's their request?
It is not in this budget. What I have included in there is all the things that we have funded in the past.
Oh, okay.
So the Waldo would be in addition to the budget. Thank you for clarifying that, or asking that.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yep, sorry, Mr. Helwig.
Mike, is that because we haven't supported it in the past? That it's not on the budget?
It's a little of both. Right now, the county is fulfilling their duty by providing the meals. It may not be in the way that it's requested, but we are providing the meals. Beyond that, supporting the center would really open up us, the board, to a lot of requests that would be very similar, that would be community groups. It'd be hard to fund all of those. And it's hard to not fund one after you funded other ones. You know, this is totally unrelated, but part of the Waldville request is after school programming, which winter school could actually do through community service fund, which is a separate levy. So there could be some other opportunities to support that.
So in lieu of us, excuse me, of us giving money, could you offer your guidance on helping them get different funding? Because it's not a county project, it's a city project. Their community center is. So in lieu of that, can he just offer us support? I mean, as far as getting them connected with the school, it just sounds like they're needing some kind of assistance. It doesn't have to be monetary from us.
With my school background, I could help them look at the funding from the school.
Okay, Mr. Peters?
Well, I guess my question is that in the past, there were facilities there, albeit they were paid for through a grant, but those had to be removed because they were no longer part of the program. But at the same time, we do have a need in that area of the county that makes it, I think, important that we support the senior portion of that facility, because that's where the meals come for people to either eat them there or to pick them up. So I think that we should have some sort of way of accommodating something for that.
Well, if they're getting, Chairman, may I? If they're getting federal funds, they can get their kitchen built by the USDA. They just have to apply for grants. So we don't have to be the end-all be-all, especially if they're a community project within just a city. Otherwise, like Mr. Markran said, we're going to be getting requests from every single municipality that has a community center or something of that nature where they're hosting. So I think we have to be careful of opening a big can of worms and maybe just guide them to the other opportunities that might get them more funds than even the county.
That would be very helpful, I think.
Oh, Mr. Weaver.
Just a clarification, we support the one in Hayward. Why is that different?
Okay, Mike, you want to answer that, please?
We support the Senior Resource Center. Like, that's the county's obligation, that's what we do. And we don't dictate to them where the centers are. So does that answer your question?
Mr. Schluter?
Yes, Sawyer County Senior Resource Center provides meals to the winter area and the whole county. via Meals on Wheels. We have some people who meet at a certain location and they just pick up their meals and take them. So Sawyer County is providing meals for everyone who wants to be supplied with their Meals on Wheels. To do more than that would be double dipping. We're paying for the Meals on Wheels program, everything that we are required to pay for. And if we start giving more money for another group to provide meals, that's double dipping. We're paying for twice for the same thing. And I'm opposed to this.
Okay, Mr. Alvarado?
Yeah, I was going to save this for later, but it's probably a good time to bring it up just on a process standpoint. So kind of for some of the reasons that have already been said, the Finance Committee did receive the Waldo request, as did administration. As we've been putting the budget together, primarily what you're seeing is the request. We've left like the external ones we've already been funding in there, but we did not include Waldo, and we don't intend to include Waldo in the administrative budget that'll come after this, which is not going to be significantly different from this. And in part, it's because of we've actually encouraged Senior Resource Center to look at controlling their meal costs by maybe less kitchens, because every time you have a kitchen, you have the hardware, the equipment, the personnel, the cook, and then probably drivers to go with it. And their meal costs are going up. We contract out our aging services to Senior Resource, so it is the meals primarily, but there's also some other services they offer. And like has already been said, I don't see it as beneficial to have another entity offering similar services. Senior Resource also receives federal or state support with federal dollars to offset some of their costs to deliver these services to the county. So they are providing the meals to that area. And it's getting covered. I understand it's not a senior center, it's not a congregate area, but we believe that it's meeting the requirement. Now I wanted to mention, and we have another request that I'll talk about at some point that we're not including as well. So when we present our administrative budget to the board, to the Finance Committee, those things won't be in there. It's up to the committee or the county board. If you want to add those in, you can certainly do that. And you can ask us to show you the impact of adding something in or how might that look. But that's kind of how the process works, is we'll present a budget and then you can take it from there.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Mr. Markern.
All right, so looking at the preliminary revenues then, and actually since this meeting and the Finance Committee meeting was later, well, it was the last possible day this year, I actually had the revenue sheet prior to prepping for the meeting, so these are pretty much set now. So the tax line is going up a little bit, and that is the $200,000 increase in sales tax, and then also the levy limit increase, which I will show later on. Intergovernmental revenue, that is mostly the shared revenue increase. Right there, $290,000 is about what that is. Next two stayed the same. Public charges, you're going to see, well, why is that going down? And we have been, for quite a few years, over budgeting ambulance revenue, and we haven't hit it. Luckily, expenses haven't hit the budget either, so it's like last year it was within $2,000. It really netted itself out. Well, I wanted to budget it more to what we should really expect. So I did ask John to reduce the income by $300,000 for the fees, and then when I figured out the expenses, it came out very close to that too, so it didn't really affect their bottom line. And then miscellaneous, you think, well, why is that going up so much? Well, there are two reasons for that. Number one thing under miscellaneous is interest income, and I budgeted very little for 23 because, like I said, we were getting 0.14% at the time of the budget, and now we might hit $1 million by the end of the year. Well, I've budgeted $500,000 next year just to be cautious on that, so that's up quite a bit. And then the other difference is those two fund balance draws from HHS and highway. Those fall under miscellaneous. So that's why that number is so much bigger. And then other financing sources, that went way down because that is debt issue for construction, and ARPA is also in there. So, any questions on, along with all of the, what I would say the 200 level funds, which are canteen fund, Parks and Rec, a whole host of different ones. Those all fall under other as well. Expenditures then, and you're probably wondering why general fund is going down. Well, that's because the drop from fund balance that goes from general fund then to HHS is reduced. Last year it was 1.7. This year would be much less than that. The budget would be $750,000 between highway and HHS, so that's why that number's down substantially. HHS just has a moderate increase. Highway I'll talk about for a little bit. Gary did the budget all on his own, and he did it according to how he had to report to the state. So then for Mike Keefe prior and me last year, it's really hard to take those budget figures, put them in New World. So we actually, with John Canal being new, and you know, I'm still fairly new, we met with Washburn County, and that was very helpful. So the lady who does the accounting there has been doing it for years and years, and she had a very good system. So she really helped us develop the budget. We did it more in kind of a combined way through multiple layers of spreadsheets in Excel, but it is something we both understand now. So that helped a lot with budgeting. So this reflects more of a realistic budget. And I know where the money is going now. Instead of a $1.6 million highway repair number, it actually has all of the components into it. So it's much easier for all of us to understand. And then the debt payment goes up a little bit. Now we're fully paying for this addition, and we're paying down the new debt issue, the $4 million, pretty aggressively this year. Where $1 million is going towards principal this year alone. So that's gonna save us interest down the road. And then the capital is going down again because of construction's basically done. So that's really just the CIP and a purchase of an ambulance. And then the other, there was a blip in 2023, and that was due to the ARPA money. And that's basically gonna be expended by the end of the year, and actually might be. The only thing I had budgeted for 24 was the helicopter pad for $40,000 for Draper. And now, after I put this together, Andy got an email saying that they'll probably have that done yet this year even. So that numbers could change still. Now breaking down the tax levy. You can see the general tax levy's just got a very nominal increase, as does ambulance. We had quite the increases in ambulance for 2 years in a row, with moving towards fully staffed full-time. And then we gave some pay increases for 23, so that we saw some pretty good increases. Well, that's pretty level now for this year. HHS is pretty level. The other ones are, I've got the full Nemacoggin Transit request in there, so that was quite an increase of 16%. And we wouldn't recommend that, as I've talked about. The cost of the ambulance is higher, so the CIP portion of that is up a little bit, and then the highway tax levy is up again, kind of reflecting moving more towards a realistic budget number. And the bottom line then is about a 2.7% increase in $300 and some thousand, which after 2 years in a row of $1 million increase, that's why, for me, this is a fun budget to propose versus last year wasn't as fun for me. And then the valuation, it went up a lot again, went up about 14.5%. last year, 18.5% this year. That's really astronomical growth in the last 2 years. And it's good, but the reality is most of that is residential home appreciation. Our net new construction was up, which is good. Commercial's up a little bit, but a lot of it is just valuations have gone up. So it doesn't necessarily spread the tax burden out anymore. It's could be a shift if your township was reassessed up and others didn't. But overall, that's why I'm glad the actual levy is not much higher, because it's not being split by a lot of new property. It's just reassessments of what's there. But the mill rate is gonna be 2.68, which is down from 309, down 13%. So it's all good news. Any questions on the actual tax levy?
Mike, does this budget include any contracted EMS services to the outer areas of our county?
Yep.
That's serviced by other ambulance services?
Oh, no. What it includes is the revenue we get from the 3 Washburn County municipalities.
That's the other item that we know has been requested that's not included.
Oh, okay.
And so I can highlight that. Public safety and the finance committee have heard a little bit of this, but the town of Edgewater contracts separately with the Birchwood Four Corners ambulance service for about $73,000 a year to service their town. They also, the taxpayers in the town of Edgewater also levied their portion of our county levy, which includes the ambulance service. So the town has asked us, well, first request was to not have the taxpayers assessed. We cannot do that. We can't just pull one town out of the county levy. And then they asked for us to pay their fees to the Birchwood ambulance service, the $73,000. So that's one of those things like Waldo that we don't intend to include in the budget. And the snapshot reasons would be that it would actually levy to all the county taxpayers the cost of Edgewater joining Birchwood. That's a choice they make. I mean, there are some very valid arguments that where our ambulances are located, not everybody gets equal service. It is a longer run for us to get one of our ambulances down there. But again, when the finance committee and the board get the budget, if they want to put it in, we can show you the impact of what that would do, and it can be a board decision to do that. And we were at the town of Edgewater meeting last week, and I told them that as well.
Okay.
And just to expound
Thanks,
on what Andy mentioned, to do that, we would actually have to increase our ambulance service levy by that $73,000, because them doing that's not going to reduce our costs at all, but paying them $73,000 would increase our expenses. So then, as Andy mentioned, that $73,000 would be spread over everybody. So that's why we would not include that.
I just know we're getting that request, and some supervisors have heard it in those areas. And then in regards to tax exempt, have we ever considered payment in lieu of taxation? Has the county ever considered that, Andy?
I don't know if we've considered. I know there are some specific housing developments when they start up that are going to be tax exempt. They can pay a pilot payment. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know the history. I've not come across any of those here where we've gone out and negotiated a pilot payment. Usually, most properties that are tax exempt, getting a pilot payment is voluntary on their part. You really can't force them. But sometimes when it's usually it starts at the municipality level. Before they issue a building permit, they'll try to negotiate a pilot payment.
It'd be pretty hard to go retro and ask someone
Yeah,
who hasn't
no, I
paid
know.
it to do it. It would have to be on the front end like that.
Can we enforce them to use our ambulance service, though? You don't have to answer that. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, are you talking specifically about a township or?
Well, like hospitals and clinics are all tax exempt, correct?
Oh,
and you don't want to answer that. Okay. All right. What else you got, Mike?
I'm not going to touch that one either. And then I've just got a mill rate history at the end here, and it shows that it would be the lowest in the last 13 years. And the third year in a row would be going down. So
It's all good news.
So that'd be nice to hit the front page with, even though we just built, that we're still going down. That's nice. Thank you.
I did think of that as I was preparing it. That is pretty remarkable to add a bunch of debt and still have the mill rate increase.
That's been the biggest complaint, is people think their taxes are going to go up based on our remodel. So it would be nice to highlight that. Thank you.
Well, in full disclosure, everybody's, we don't want to push the notion that the taxes are going to go down. The check that they cut might actually go up depending on how any revaluations affected their property. So their property value may have gone up significantly. Even though they're paying less of a rate, their total tax might go up. So
That's what I was getting at earlier. There's not new construction. That's not why the valuation's going up. It's just reevaluation.
Okay, Mr. Helwig.
But that has nothing to do with our construction. Their taxes going, and that's what Ms. Hessel was trying to. And I agree, maybe to put something like that out on the paper and say, look, you know, yeah, we're doing this, but we're still looking okay for once.
Well, what else you got, Mr. Markern? But looks like you did a great job. You and Andy.
Yeah, like I said, I also included kind of a department by department. I don't really feel we need to go through that. If you want to go through it on your own and shoot me a question, that's certainly an option.
Okay, appreciate it. Anything else for Mr. Markern on our first look, huh, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the timeline then going forward? Is there a public hearing coming up, or there's some?
Yep. In a couple weeks, we'll publish the budget hearing budget.
Okay.
And we will have that at the next, last year we coincided with the
County board?
County board meeting.
In October then we'll
Yep.
have our public hearing? Okay. Finance good with that? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marker.
All right. Luckily, I like it.
Very
Budget time's my
easy budget to
favorite.
present, he says. Okay. Anything else for the finance committee then? If not, we'll move on to economic development. Mr. Duffy, chair report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on September 11th. We first heard from the University of Wisconsin Extension, and they gave us their report on upcoming events. And they've got a unique project. They're offering a series on focus on fathers. And it's a series on co-parenting and how to raise children together while living apart. So they're going to keep us informed as to the result, but certainly is an interesting study. We had then a report from the Hayward Lakes Visitor Bureau, and we learned that Discover Wisconsin has been here the past month, and the TV cruise covering river kayaking, golf, and other interesting things to do in Hayward. And the air date is going to be October 21st and 22nd, so it'll be great coverage for us. Then Andy gave us a report on the Northwest Regional Planning, as well as the broadband update, and he'll cover that in his report. The library updates from both the Hayward and the Winter Library gave us an update as to their fundraising efforts. And the motorized trail report has offered a ride-safe class for the Hayward High School. Basically, the goal was to teach youth to be safe around motorsports, to wear proper helmets and safety gear. Then we heard from LCO. They gave us a report on their new medical facility. The footings are in and the basement walls are starting to go up. So we'll follow that each month also. Then on the Brookie report, this past week we had a Fat Tire bike race. Went from the city of Hayward up to Telemark. Over 300 bikers participated. Trails were great and fast. And the winner was a Colorado man who trained in the mountains, but it was a well-attended event. The next event is coming this weekend. That's going to be the trail run, and they expect about over 1,000 runners for that event. Then covering the Berkey, as of last Monday, they surpassed 11,000 racers for the Berkey. And then the next event that'll follow after the trail run is going to be the Thanksgiving ski camp called the Berkey Turkey, and that'll be on artificial snow made by the artificial guns at Telemark. That, Mr. Chairman, completes my report.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes,
wouldn't
Ms.
the Fat-
Wilson.
Wouldn't the Fat Tire Festival been 3,000 bikers?
I'm sorry, is it
3,000 bikers?
3,000 plus bikers, yeah, well attended.
Thank you. Ms. Hessel.
I just wanted to expound on that Ride Safe program. It was last Thursday, September 14th, and it was K through 12. So they fitted, at the high school, they fitted all of our students for safety gear and showed them what to ride and what not to ride. But also the Hayward Lakes Visitors Bureau, the Discover Wisconsin was throughout Sawyer County, not just Hayward. I always want to clarify that.
Okay, Mr. Helwig.
This is kind of off topic and it's not really like an event thing, but there was recently a Ironman competition in Milwaukee, and we had a resident of the county in his age group came in second, came in overall in 4th place. I would love to get that in the paper, but he does not want to be recognized. I thought you all
Thank you,
might
Mr.
wanna know.
Helwig. All right, anything else for economic development? If not, thank you, Mr. Duffy. Well done. All right, number 16, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Alvarado.
Sure, the courthouse renovation, still just a couple punch list items, really small items to finish, as well as the bigger is finishing of the AV. There's a number of pieces that are still on back order for all 3 of the rooms. We've got temporary systems in place, but hopefully that'll get done next month. Otherwise, the building's fully operational. We will need to address some furniture needs that we're going without for right now, but we're just gonna hold off on those until we get the project closed out. Working on the closeout, we still have not paid out the final bills to the project manager or the architect as we work through some issues there. The second branch is up and running, and I think I'd mentioned that, and my sentence got unfinished before I sent this to Lynn to put up. But yeah, everybody's stretching to keep things operational, and like I said, it'll take a few months yet to the calendars to balance out, and then we'll see the full effect of having a second branch up and running. Personnel, still kind of recruiting for the same positions. And you can see the clerk of court positions are on there. We still have some driver operators at Hayward. It seems as quick as we hire somebody else retires, but we know we're getting closer to the kind of the wave of retirements coming to an end. Like Mr. Pino said, he's establishing a night watch position that will be funded partially by the state. It's not an additional position, it's a assignment of those duties. Other than that, though, we are going through some other subtle structure changes out there. Operations manager, superintendent, Brad Bizey is going to be retiring, so we're replacing that, and then establishing a couple foreman positions so we can rotate responsibilities, which is a little different from how it was done in the past. So we're not adding new positions, just I guess changing the org chart a little bit. We do have enough jailers to have all of our female inmates back in the jail, but we're still hiring in that area to kind of reduce, well, to fill out the approved positions so we can reduce overtime and get everybody a little bit more time off. We are working on new employee benefits package for next year as part of the budget process. We should have that. We're waiting for some final numbers on renewals and other options, so that should be coming out in October as well. The budget process, we've kind of talked about that. I did have in my report just the Waldo and the Edgewater items in there because I wanted to be upfront with the board that we know those requests are there. We don't intend to approve them. If you want more information or some type of white paper from us on the whys or the why nots, we can do that. And like I said, as far as the process, the board is certainly able to add those items into the budget. And I think, like the Waldo individuals are here tonight, I did tell the town of Edgewater individuals as well that if they'd like to, they should make an arrangements to appear at the finance committee or the board to discuss the issue. Corporation council work, cut down on some of the items we had them worked on, we're having them work on, but it seems like we're now moving more into like the ordinance development. Like you heard, we're working on the highway access ordinance for driveways and utilities, animal control, zoning, And then there's been some issues there with just land use decisions, Board of Adjustment, and Tourist Rooming House, the ad hoc committee that we have them looking at the legal end of those things. I did ask, Board of Adjustment will have council present going forward, just to make sure that's consistent, to help out their decisions. I think the first meeting went well with doing that. Can point out too, the zoning committee has heard this, but we are trying to arrange training for the zoning committee and the Board of Adjustment through the Center for Land Use at Stevens Point, who does those trainings. When those are scheduled, we'll let the full board know, and anybody will be able to attend those. CJCC spent a lot of time discussing mental health services in the jail. Our contractor that we has been unable to staff it, which has created some problems, so we are looking at other options there. Like Mr. Hellwig said, Judge Isham did attend CJCC and was fairly active for her first meeting, asking questions and getting up to speed. I think she's going to take interest in a few of the things we have going there. I think we had mentioned last month that the law enforcement deflection grant was awarded. If you see the news today, that actually is public now. It's from the DHS, Department of Health Service, but if you see a $260,000 award to Sawyer County, to the Sheriff's Department, that is the deflection grant. It'll help train our deputies how to handle opioid issues in the field, and it'll add staff for Justice Point to work with those individuals as law enforcement diverts them into those services. No new updates on the opioid settlement or programs. You heard that all last month. Ambulance, one of the 3 towns in Washburn has responded. We're still waiting for responses from the other 2. And then, kind of reiterating, there were some other issues in the town of Edgewater regarding some calls last year. We tried to work through those when we met with them. We will be getting them CAD reports from dispatch to see how calls are being dispatched. It is the town of Edgewater's choice, as it is every town's choice, to direct dispatch who they want to respond to their calls. Just so happens that Edgewater is our only town. Their primary responding agency is Birchwood Four Corners for ambulance and fire. That's their choice. Just as, like, it's not much of an issue in the rest of the county for ambulance, but every town also directs, we have a number of fire departments. So every town says we want this department responding, and usually there's some type of membership or connection with that fire department. And I think I've already explained the ins and outs of how the funding would work for Edgewater and why we can't remove them from the levy. Airport, we're starting to talk about winter, unfortunately, and how snow removal will occur, as well as de-icing. The master planning process continues. The consultant's been doing their work over the summer. That's the things that they have to work on, and then they'll be expecting to have a meeting with the master plan committee in late October. They did want to make sure everybody knew that at some point when the plan gets further developed, there will be opportunities for public input. There will be 3 to 4 public meetings, hearings to look at their work and before the plan is finalized. Economic development, some discussion with the Development Corporation on staffing options. Might be talking to probably the Economic Development Committee a little bit more about that, about options to have the county involved in that. They've been struggling with staffing without staff for most of this year, and I think just in general struggling with staffing. So we're talking about some things that could help stabilize that, and with county support potentially. Broadband, with the Development Corporation's Broadband Committee, Mr. Peters and I had a meeting with local internet service providers in preparation for the next round of funding. You hear about the BEAD funding. The state has $1 billion they'll be handing out probably around the first of the year. Our providers we want to make sure we know we don't have the ARPA dollars to really match what they're going to do, but even nominal dollar amounts and agreements to partner with them will be helpful in their applications. So we've reiterated our desire to do that. Attached to this, I did include we did get, these are just the projects that, Alex, you want to scroll down to the 3rd page, or, yeah, 4th page. So there's a map attached if you want to look. This shows the projects that the county partnered with the providers on with the ARPA dollars. Orange is Nervado, green is Mosaic, and then the light green and yellow at the bottom are BevCom. So you can kind of see how we're starting to lay out. Mosaic is going to start filling in the gaps around their green areas as they move up towards Hayward. Novato has built a path from Bayfield County down through the town of Winter that goes over to where they connect in with Price County Telephone, which they now own. And so they're going to start building off of those backbones, as well as all the work they do down around Hayward. So this just shows the broadband that's in place from the ARPA dollars and the PSC rounds. So there's more of the county covered than just what's here. If you pull up a PSC map sometime, you can see really around Hayward and probably a few miles in all directions. There's pretty good broadband coverage. There's multiple providers. Charter is a big player. We met with them separately and heard that they'll be pursuing dollars as well. CenturyLink / Brightspeed / Lumen, whatever they're going by these days, is also in the area and providing service. And then we also want to make sure we maintain communication with the Coudray, who are doing some of their own things. And it's important because they're kind of right in the middle of it all. And to get connections built across the county might involve going through or partnering up with whatever networks they're going to work with. So I think we're in a good spot countywide. And the other message that in talking to the providers is to make sure that, well, we might want, and I should mention, Town of Draper is working with what used to be called the LTD. It's Gig Fire, who has a state grant. And I don't know the timeline, but that project is still working or going forward. That would cover the town of Draper. But at the end of this, there's going to be some people who just aren't going to have fiber or high speeds. If you're built back in the woods a little ways, it's just not feasible. These companies are still looking at the return on investment. So they're going to go where they can make a profit. And that's just the way business works. So, but we've agreed to keep lines open and do whatever we can to help them receive additional funds. We did have a conversation with LCO a couple weeks ago about a few issues that we'll keep open lines of communication on relating to right-of-way jurisdiction issues with the roads within the reservation boundaries, the tribal land taxation issue, and I'll refer back to the report that the treasurer attached to the finance committee under land sales. That's just for reference for you to see the land we have sold, the land we have taken on tax deed and are preparing to sell. We did put a pause on selling any more land because of the federal appeals court decision where tribal lands within the reservation boundaries that are being taxed but owned by tribal members are supposed to be tax exempt. There are some properties that we'll be taking probably to the Land Water Committee to request their approval to just provide or deed those back to the property owners that are tribal members, because we don't believe that we could, they'll have a claim to the property if we go ahead and sell it, which will create a mess because of that federal appeals court decision. There was also some other issues. The LCO is interested in any lands that we acquire within the reservation that they have an opportunity to purchase or have the right of first refusal on. So we're working through that as well. Sheriff Public Safety, kind of a noteworthy thing there. We've drafted a RFQ, a request for qualifications, for a vendor to do an assessment, maintenance, and potential enhancements of the public safety radio system. So it's drafted, it's not finalized. We have a couple more people to look at it, but we plan to put that out for a vendor that would essentially take over running our radio system and helping us determine the path forward with that. And then, yeah, as mentioned, TRHs, tourist rooming houses, and ATV, those discussions. Seeing a lot more email traffic and phone calls on both those issues. So I know committees are working on those, and you might be hearing things. So certainly is drawing some interest to those. I think the only thing I was going to mention is reiterate what Mr. Buckholt said. We have a few areas in the county operation that are really doing a good job of stretching themselves and trying to keep things going. Zoning office is still seeing a lot of permit activity, and obviously the rooming house discussion goes through there. The court system, getting just a lot of willingness to try to make things work until we get really into the flow of things, and then a few areas in human services. So employees are doing a good job of trying to keep us be budget conscious, but still deliver services to the public. And then on the last page here, I had this map. I don't think I've shared it with anybody on the board, but for fun, sort of, but also just to get a perspective on the county. I had Land Information Office a month or two ago put together a map of the county, highlighting properties that are tax exempt versus properties that pay tax. So you can peruse that at your convenience. Purple is county-owned land, like the county forest or the airport. The pink color is federal, like the Schwamigan Forest. Yellow is state lands, like the Flambeau State Forest or lands held in trust. The green is managed forest land, so those aren't tax exempt, but they pay a much reduced tax liability because they're under the managed forest land. And then the darker salmon is the darker salmon and some of the pink are reservation lands. So the white parcels are the properties that are assessed and have a tax liability to them. And this kind of led into a bigger project where we pulled up all the county-owned land and just making sure we don't have any parcels out there that we are owning and not using and don't have them classified as county forest land. So that's, when you look at what the county owns, it's county forest land. There's a number of dams in the adjoining area, the airport, tower sites. But there's also a lot of tax deed property that was taken recently or some time ago that we're reviewing just to make sure we're not holding on to anything that we don't need.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Anything else? Very good report. Number 17, correspondence reports from conferences. Small contingency of us went down to the Wisconsin Counties Association meeting in Wisconsin Dells. We didn't get back till Tuesday afternoon, so we shared the, the shared revenue, what we'd requested down there, and that's pretty well explained there, and I know Mike went over it again tonight. And then I was able to get the Village of Lake Delton's tourist rooming house ordinance, which they shared with us, and I sent it to our Jay Kozlowski, and he'll share it with the ad hoc committee on tourist rooming houses. So, anything else? Anyone else want to add? Nope. All right, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.